Have you ever noticed how the world seems to get louder with each passing day? The constant notifications, the endless chatter, the ceaseless stream of information bombarding our senses from every direction. We've become so accustomed to the noise that silence makes us uncomfortable. That discomfort, that's exactly where we need to begin. The most profound truths I've ever discovered came to me in moments of complete solitude, not the forced solitude of a locked room with a phone still buzzing in your pocket. I'm talking about the kind of solitude that initially feels like standing on the edge of a vast ocean at midnight, intimidating, endless, and yet somehow calling you to wade deeper. You see, we've been conditioned to fear being alone. Society has painted solitude with the heavy brushstrokes of loneliness, turning what should be a sanctuary into something we actively avoid. But here's the beautiful paradox. The very thing we're running from holds. Let me share something with you. In the depths of winter, I once spent a week in complete solitude. No phone, no internet, no distractions. The first day was torture. My mind buzzed like a trapped bee against a window, desperately seeking escape. By the second day, the buzzing grew louder and my thoughts became a carnival of chaos. But then something extraordinary happened. As the hours stretched into days, the noise began to settle, like sediment falling to the bottom of a disturbed pond. The water cleared, and for the first time in years, I could see straight through to the bottom. That clarity revealed truths about myself I'd been too busy to notice, too distracted to acknowledge. You might be wondering what this has to do with strength. Everything. Absolute everything. Because in that silence, I discovered that strength isn't what we've been told it is. It's not about being impenetrable, unshakable, or perpetually confident. True strength flows from knowing yourself so deeply. Think about the questions you've been avoiding, the ones that creep up in those brief moments between activities, in the split second before you reach for your phone to drown them out. What are those questions trying to tell you? What wisdom are they holding? The strength I'm talking about isn't built in gyms or boardrooms. It's forged in those moments when you dare to sit with yourself, completely unfiltered and unadorned. It's developed when you finally stop running from your own company and instead embrace it as your most loyal companion. We often mistake connection for growth. We believe that the more people we surround ourselves with, the stronger our foundation becomes. But have you noticed how some of the most connected people often seem the most lost? They're like ships with 1,000 anchors, yet none reaching deep enough to hold them steady in a storm. The truth is, every great leader, every transformed life, every profound change began with a journey inward, not outward, not in seeking more connections, more noise, more distractions. The path to unshakable strength, paradoxically, begins with a willingness to be still, to be alone, to listen to the wisdom that only emerges in silence. Consider the mighty oak tree. It doesn't grow strong by leaning on others. It grows strong by sending its roots deep into solitude, drawing nourishment from the quiet earth below. Its strength isn't in its height or its breadth, but in its ability to stand alone, to weather storms without depending on the forest around it. You might be thinking, but isn't this promoting isolation? Aren't we meant to be social creatures? And you're right to ask these questions. But there's a profound difference between isolation and solitude. Isolation is what happens when we cut ourselves off from others out of fear or pain. Solitude is what happens when we choose to be alone so we can return to others more whole, more authentic, more capable of genuine connection. In our pursuit of constant connection, we've lost something precious: the ability to be comfortable in our own company. We've forgotten how to listen to our inner voice, that quiet wisdom that only speaks when everything else goes silent. This loss has left us vulnerable, constantly seeking external validation. But what if the strength you're seeking isn't out there at all? What if it's been within you all along, waiting patiently for you to create enough silence to hear it? What if the very discomfort you feel when alone is actually the growing pains of your own strength trying to emerge? I've seen it countless times. People transformed not by what they added to their lives, but by what they dared to subtract, by the courage they found to sit in silence, to face themselves honestly, to embrace solitude not as punishment but as privilege. These individuals didn't just find strength, they uncovered their own innate power that had been buried under years of noise and distraction. Think about the last time you were truly alone with your thoughts. Not alone with your phone, not alone Netflix playing in the background, but truly, deeply alone. What came up for you in those moments? What truths tried to surface? What insights attempted to break through the usual chaos of mind? The most common response I hear when discussing solitude is, "I don't have time." We've all said it, haven't we? We wear our busyness like a badge of honor, as if the fuller our calendar, the more meaningful our existence. But let's examine this belief for a moment. Time isn't something that happens to us, it's something we choose to allocate. When we say we don't have time for solitude, what we're really saying is that we're afraid of what we might find in the quiet. We're saying that we'd rather stay busy than brave the unknown territory. You see, in our culture of constant connectivity, we've developed an almost allergic reaction to being alone. We check our phones hundreds of times a day, not because we need to, but because we're uncomfortable with the alternative, being present with ourselves. We've become so addicted to external stimulation that our own company feels foreign, But here's what fascinates me about human nature. Our greatest fears often guard our greatest treasures. That resistance you feel toward solitude, it's like a compass pointing toward your next breakthrough. The very thing you're avoiding might be the key to unlocking your next level of growth. Let me share something deeper with you. In those moments of true solitude, when the masks come off and the pretenses fall away, we often encounter parts of ourselves we've been running from. Maybe it's uncertainty about our life's direction. Maybe it's regret over paths not taken. Maybe it's fear about the future. These shadows of our psyche don't disappear just because we keep ourselves busy. They simply wait, growing stronger in the dark corners of our avoidance. But here's where the magic happens. When we finally turn to face these aspects of ourselves, something remarkable occurs. The monsters in the dark often turn out to be our greatest teachers. That uncertainty about your path, it's actually your inner wisdom trying to guide you toward authenticity. That regret over roads not taken, it's your soul pointing you toward unfulfilled potential. Those fears about the future, they're highlighting what truly matters to you. Think about water for a moment. When it's constantly moving, constantly churning, you can't see through it. But when it becomes still, it turns into a mirror, reflecting everything above and revealing everything below. Your mind works the same way. In constant motion, it can't reflect or reveal, it can only react. The strength that comes from solitude isn't just about being comfortable alone. It's about developing an unshakable core that remains steady regardless of external circumstances. It's about building a relationship with yourself that's so solid, so genuine, that it becomes your foundation for every other relationship in your life. Consider how many decisions you make each day based on what others might think. How many choices are influenced by the fear of judgment, the need for approval, the desire to fit in? Now, imagine making those same decisions from a place of deep self-acknowledge and authentic self-trust. That's the power of solitude. It teaches you to hear your own voice so clearly that other voices lose their power to sway you from your truth. I've watched people transform their lives not through grand external changes, but through the simple practice of intentional solitude. They begin to move differently through the world. Their words carry more weight because they come from a place of genuine self-acknowledge. Their relationships deepen because they're no longer using others to fill their own emotional voids. But let's be honest, this journey isn't easy. The path to strength through solitude isn't a straight line. It's more like a spiral, bringing you back to the same points again and again, but each time with deeper understanding. Some days you'll embrace the quiet. Other days you'll want to fill every moment with noise. Both are part of the process. The key is to understand that strength isn't about eliminating weakness. It's about embracing your whole self, shadows and light alike. In solitude, you learn to sit with both your magnificence and your mess, your potential and your limitations. This complete self-acceptance becomes a kind of psychological armor, not because it makes you invulnerable, but because it makes you unafraid of vulnerability. You might be wondering about practical steps. How does one begin this journey into solitude? It starts with small moments. Turn off your phone during your morning coffee. Take a walk without your earbuds. Sit in your car for 5 extra minutes before entering your house after work. These aren't just pauses in your day. As you create these pockets of solitude, pay attention to what comes up. The discomfort, the restlessness, the sudden urge to check your phone. These are all messages. They're showing you where you've become disconnected from yourself, where you've learned to depend on external noise to drown out internal wisdom. This journey into solitude will challenge everything you think you know about strength. It will show you that true power isn't in having all the answers, but in being comfortable with the questions. It will teach you that real confidence isn't about knowing you can handle everything, but about knowing you can handle being with yourself through anything. There's a profound shift that occurs when you begin to embrace solitude. Your relationships transform. Not because you're doing anything different externally, but because you're approaching them from a place of wholeness rather than need. When you're no longer using relationships to fill a void, you become capable of genuine connection. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. The quality of your solitude determines the quality of your relationships. Think about that for a moment. When you're uncomfortable being alone, you tend to accept relationships that you might otherwise outgrow. You stay in situations that no longer serve you. You compromise your truth to avoid facing yourself. But as you develop strength through solitude, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Your tolerance for superficial connections diminishes, not because you become judgmental, but because you've tasted something deeper, the authentic relationship you've developed with yourself. This becomes your new standard for all relationships. The world tries to convince us that strength comes from having an army of supporters, a huge network, a constant stream of validation. But look at nature. The tallest trees aren't the ones growing in clusters. They're the ones that have learned to stand alone, their solitude forcing them to develop deeper roots. In your own life, how many decisions have you made because you were afraid of being alone? How many times have you filled your schedule to avoid facing the silence? These aren't just casual choices. They're the very patterns that keep you from accessing your deepest strength. Consider this. Every significant breakthrough in human history came from someone willing to step away from the crowd, to sit with their thoughts, to brave the discomfort of being alone with their ideas. Innovation, creativity, personal transformation, these don't happen in the noise. They emerge from the quiet spaces we create in our lives. But here's what most people don't understand about solitude. It's not about physical isolation. You can be physically alone and still be running from yourself, still be filling every moment with distractions. True solitude is a state of mind, a willingness to be present with yourself, exactly as you are. When you begin to practice real solitude, you start to notice things you've been missing. The subtle signals your body sends you, the quiet voice of your intuition, the patterns in your thoughts and behaviors that have been invisible in the noise of daily life. This awareness becomes a form of strength that no external circumstance can shake. Think about the last time you felt truly peaceful. Chances are it wasn't in a crowd, it wasn't while scrolling through social media, it wasn't while trying to prove your worth to others. Most likely, it was in a moment of genuine connection with yourself. A moment when you weren't trying to be anything for anyone. This is where real strength begins to take root. In those moments when you're not performing, not pretending, not trying to meet anyone else's expectations, it's in this authentic space that you discover what you're truly capable of. The journey into solitude often reveals things we've been avoiding. Perhaps it's a dream we've been too afraid to pursue. Maybe it's a truth we've been unwilling to face. Or possibly it's a potential we've been too busy to develop. These revelations aren't always comfortable, but they're always valuable. You see, in solitude, you begin to distinguish between your own voice and the voices you've internalized from others. You start to recognize which of your beliefs are truly yours and which ones you've adopted to fit in. This clarity becomes a source of unshakable strength because it's rooted in authentic self-acknowledgement. But let's address the fear that often comes up, the fear that embracing solitude means becoming isolated or disconnected from others. Nothing could be further from the truth. When you develop strength through solitude, you become capable of deeper, more meaningful connections. You no longer need others to complete you. Instead, you can appreciate them for who they truly are. Think about the people in your life who seem to have an unshakable sense of self. The ones who don't get swept up in every trend or swayed by every opinion. Chances are, these are people who have learned to be comfortable in their own company. They've developed the kind of strength that comes only from knowing themselves deeply. The practice of solitude reveals something profound, that many of our struggles come from trying to avoid ourselves. We chase success to prove our worth. We accumulate possessions to fill our emptiness. We maintain busy social schedules to avoid feeling alone. But what if the very thing we're running from is actually the source of our greatest strength? In solitude, you learn to differentiate between loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness is a state of lacking, of feeling disconnected. Aloneness is a state of fullness, of being complete in yourself. This distinction becomes crucial as you develop inner strength. You begin to recognize that the capacity to be alone, peacefully, is not just a skill, it's a superpower. The strength that emerges from solitude has a different quality than the strength we try to project to the world. It's not brittle or defensive. It doesn't need to prove itself. It's like the depth of the ocean, powerful, not because it roars, but because it remains essentially unchanged by the storms on its surface. There's a misconception that strong people don't need time alone, that they're always ready for action, always available, always on. But true strength isn't about constant availability. It's about maintaining your center, regardless of external demands. It's about knowing when to step back, when to refuel, when to simply be. Let me share a profound truth that took me years to understand. The world will take as much of you as you're willing to give. It will fill every empty space, occupy every quiet moment, consume every bit of energy, unless you consciously create boundaries. These boundaries aren't walls to keep others out. They're spaces you create to keep yourself intact. When you first begin creating these spaces for solitude, something interesting happens. People around you might resist. They might question your new boundaries, challenge your need for alone time, even make you feel guilty for taking this space for yourself. This resistance is actually a gift. It's showing you exactly where you need to strengthen your commitment to yourself. Think about how often you've said yes when your inner voice was screaming no. How many times have you ignored your need for solitude because someone else needed your attention? How frequently have you pushed aside your own renewal because there were too many demands on your time? Each of these moments was an opportunity to practice the strength that comes from honoring your relationship with yourself. The beauty of developing strength through solitude is that it changes how you show up in every area of your life. Your work becomes more focused because you're operating from a place of clarity rather than chaos. Your creative endeavors become more authentic because you're connected to your inner voice. Your relationships become more genuine because you're no longer using them to escape yourself. But here's something crucial to understand. This strength doesn't develop overnight. It's built in small moments, in daily choices, in tiny acts of courage, where you choose to sit with yourself rather than reach for a distraction. Every time you resist the urge to fill the silence, you're building this strength. Every time you turn inward instead of outward for answers, you're developing this power. Consider how many decisions in your life have been made from a place of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of missing out, fear of what others might think. Now, imagine making those same decisions from a place of deep self-trust, from a connection with your own inner guidance. That's the kind of transformation that solitude offers. The strength I'm talking about isn't just psychological. It manifests in practical ways. It shows up as the ability to stay calm in chaos because you've learned to find peace within yourself. It appears as the confidence to stand by your decisions because they come from a place of genuine self-acknowledge. It emerges as the capacity to support others without losing yourself because you're anchored in your own truth. You might be wondering about the cost of this journey. Yes, developing strength through solitude requires sacrifice. You'll need to sacrifice the comfort of constant distraction. You'll have to give up the habit of filling every moment with noise. You'll need to release the addiction to external validation. But what you gain in return is worth infinitely more than what you give up. In these moments of solitude, you begin to understand that strength isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being brave enough to break open and discover what's inside. It's about facing your fears, your doubts, your insecurities, and realizing that they don't diminish your power. They're part of what makes you human. The practice of solitude teaches you something profound about strength, that it's not about becoming someone different, but about uncovering who you've always been beneath the layers of social conditioning and inherited beliefs. In the silence, you begin to hear your own truth, not as a whisper fighting against the noise, but as a clear, steady voice guiding you home to yourself. This journey into solitude will challenge you in unexpected ways. There will be days when sitting with yourself feels like facing an army of inner critics. Moments when the silence seems too loud, when the solitude feels too empty. But these challenges are not obstacles to your strength. They are the very experiences through which your strength is forged. Each time you choose to stay present with yourself, instead of running to distractions, you're building strength. Every instance where you listen to your inner wisdom instead of external opinions, you're developing power. Each moment you spend getting to know yourself more deeply is an investment in unshakable inner strength. The world desperately needs people who have developed this kind of strength. People who are grounded in their truth, connected to their wisdom, and capable of authentic presence. In a culture that celebrates constant connectivity, choosing solitude becomes a revolutionary act. But remember this, the goal isn't to become a hermit or to disconnect from the world. The purpose of developing strength through solitude is to engage with life more fully, more authentically, more powerfully. When you're strong in your solitude, you bring something precious to every interaction. As we move deeper into this understanding of solitude as a source of strength, let's address something that often goes unspoken. The fear that by embracing solitude, we might lose our place in the world. But I've observed something remarkable. Those who learn to be strong in their solitude don't become less connected. They think about a cup that's already full. No matter how pure the water you try to add, there's no room for it. Many of us live like this, so full of external noise, others' opinions, and constant stimulation that there's no space for genuine wisdom to enter. Solitude is the practice of emptying your cup. The strength we're exploring isn't measured by how much you can handle, how busy you can stay, or how many relationships you can maintain. It's measured by how true you can stay to yourself when the world is pulling you in 1,000 different directions. It's about developing an internal compass, so reliable that you can navigate any storm. You see, there's a profound difference between being strong and being armored. Many people mistake emotional armor for strength. They think that if they build enough walls, accumulate enough achievements, or gather enough approval, they'll finally feel strong. But true strength isn't about becoming impenetrable. It's about becoming so secure in yourself that you don't need armor anymore. In the depth of solitude, you discover something life-changing, that you are enough. Not because of what you've achieved, not because of who you know, not because of what you own, but simply because you exist. This realization becomes the foundation of unshakable strength that is within you, or full unit. You can hoy animal planet. Consider how much energy you spend trying to prove your worth to others. Imagine redirecting all that energy toward knowing and accepting yourself. That's what solitude offers. Not an escape from life, but a deeper engagement with it. Not a retreat from relationships. The practice of solitude reveals that strength isn't something you acquire, it's something you uncover. It's already within you, waiting to be recognized. Every moment of sitting with yourself, every instance of choosing presence over distraction, every act of turning inward instead of outward, these are not creating strength. They're revealing the strength that's always been there. But here's what makes this journey so powerful. As you develop this strength, you become a living permission slip for others to do the same. In a world that's afraid of silence, your comfort with solitude becomes a quiet revolution. The strength that emerges from solitude has a unique quality. It's both gentle and powerful, both vulnerable and unshakable. It allows you to stand firmly in your truth while remaining open to growth. It enables you to connect deeply with others while maintaining your own center. Remember this: every great transformation in human history began with someone willing to step away from the crowd, to listen to their inner voice, to brave the unknown territory of their own mind. Your journey into solitude isn't just about personal growth. It's about contributing to the evolution of human consciousness. As you leave here today, don't think about making dramatic changes. Think instead about creating small pockets of solitude in your daily life. These moments aren't about achieving anything. They're about being present with yourself, about developing a friendship with your own soul. Start with 5 minutes. 5 minutes of complete presence with yourself. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just you, sitting with whatever arises. These 5 minutes might feel like an eternity at first. That's okay. That discomfort. Gradually, you'll find these moments of solitude becoming not just manageable, but necessary. Like a daily appointment with your wisest self, they become the foundation of your day, the source of your clarity. And as you develop this practice, pay attention to how it changes you. Notice how you become more discerning in your choices, more authentic in your relationships, more powerful in your presence. Observe how your need for external validation diminishes as your internal guidance grows stronger. The world will continue to spin in its chaotic dance. The demands will keep coming, the noise will keep rising. But you'll have something precious, an unshakable core of strength built in silence, a deep well of wisdom accessed through solitude. This is your invitation to discover the strength that's been within you all along, to develop a relationship with yourself so profound that it transforms every other relationship in your life, to find in solitude not an escape from the world, but a deeper way of being in it. The journey begins with a single moment of chosen solitude, a single breath of complete presence, a single act of turning inward instead of outward. In that moment, you're not just choosing silence, you're choosing strength. You're not just embracing solitude. Take this message with you. Your strength isn't found in the noise, but in the silence. Not in the crowd, but in the solitude. Not in constant motion, but in mindful stillness. And most importantly, not in becoming. The choice is yours now. The door to this journey stands open. Will you be brave enough to enter the silence? To discover the strength that awaits you there? To become the person you're truly meant to be? The answer lies in your next moment of chosen solitude.